So yesterday we had ourselves a really interesting game between the Columbus Blue Jackets and the Philadelphia Flyers. Now, for me personally, I think if y'all had been paying attention to the videos, you probably would have seen that I do have some guys that were playing in this game. Adam Fantilli is on my fantasy team, so is Johnny Gaudreau, and then I added Sean Couturier because that guy was a free agent, and Leo Carlsson happens to be placed on the IR. But one of the players I wanted to talk about from this game that was not actually in the game, but who was scratched, is a former 5th overall talent. He was the first Blue Jackets selection in the 2021 NHL Entry Draft, and there were a lot of headlines yesterday heading into said Philly-Columbus game that Kent Johnson was going to be scratched. Now, I get it. I could title this video and put the alarm in the thumbnail and talk about how it's alarming, and some of y'all Blue Jackets fans could get on my behind and be like, wait a minute, what are you talking about? This isn't alarming. This isn't a big deal. And here's the thing. This video is kind of catered to the Blue Jackets fans to go over what it is that you guys have been saying about this player, Kent Johnson, but I also wanted to use this as an opportunity to kind of illuminate why this makes sense and shed some light to the rest of the fans in the NHL. Because when I saw the news that Kent Johnson would be scratched in this game alongside of Adam Boqvist and Liam Foudy as well, the immediate instinctual reaction from all the fans that are not Columbus fans was, why? What in the world is Vincent Pascal doing? Mike Babcock leaves, and the guy that you wanted to be your head coach is now the main dude, but he's going out there and scratching Kent Johnson? What are you doing? Kent Johnson last season had 40 points in 79 games played. He was 20 the entire season last year. That was his rookie season, and he was pretty good. What are the Blue Jackets doing here? The sky is falling. And because that was the immediate reaction, you saw NHL analysts that don't really follow the Blue Jackets talking about how, oh, I would personally play Kent Johnson. Even in the comment section of all the Reddit threads, it was, oh, that's a bad move. What are the Blue Jackets doing? They don't know how to run a team. Kent Johnson's a young guy who should be playing. What's the deal here? But what I wanted to do was go over some Columbus perspectives and just kind of respond to the idea as to why this makes sense. So the first response we're looking at is on the Our Hockey thread. First comment by Cop055 says that seems like Kent Johnson should be getting playing time, but that's just me. Principals RK, a Buffalo Sabres fan, replies saying, yeah, Kent Johnson looked fantastic in the preseason against us, and his behind-the-net assist was incredible. You then had a Blue Jackets fan responding and saying this, that was one game though. Kent Johnson didn't have a great preseason overall. I'm guessing they're trying to avoid another Cole Sillinger situation. He said part of his slump was coming off a strong first season and thinking it would come just as easy the next. Also, this same thing happened last year after camp. Kent Johnson was scratched after the first game. He might just need a little push after a summer off. Another reply says that Kent Johnson has had trouble adapting to the new system, and he's overthinking things a little bit. Yamcha is Dead replies with a pretty tongue-in-cheek comment, and I'm sure he's going to adapt to the system faster by sitting in the press box. And then a further reply says, yeah, no, that's actually correct. And I'm not being sarcastic when I say that. Watching the game from a bird's eye view allows him to see the whole ice, and not having to play means he can fully focus on studying the system itself. There are some other comments that I thought were interesting about this. Young Metro says, we as fans should realize that coaching has changed. It's not like the old days when coaches benched players and left them to figure things out on their own. On the surface, scratching Johnson might seem like a strange move, especially considering how well he played last year, but the fact that the Blue Jackets isn't exactly gunning for a championship this year, we should cut the coaches some slack here. Think about it. It's a whole new system, and Johnson is just 20 years old. He's still learning the ropes, and watching the game from the stands can be a beneficial experiment. It gives him a different perspective and a chance to learn from above. If Vincent Pascal has talked to Johnson and explained why he's doing this, it's a chance for Johnson to work on his game if Vincent told him to focus on certain things while watching the game. Communication is key. A Blue Jackets fan replied saying this, to add on to your point about learning a new system, a big part of why Johnson had so many points last year was that Brad Larson had no coherent system to speak of. Kent Johnson was basically playing pond hockey out there a lot of the time, which contributes to the development of lazy habits both offensively and defensively. I doubt he'll be out of the lineup for long. And when you talk about it like that, Kent Johnson is a player who is probably the biggest video game character out of the 2021 draft, a guy who could just hold onto the puck for days, try to dangle his way through everybody, make a few really nice moves, score a Michigan, score a snipe. He was just a complete free spirit in terms of the way he processed offense in the game of hockey. And for a Columbus Blue Jackets team that did not have much coherent system last year, going from a free spirit who could just do whatever he wanted to becoming a cog in the machine is a big process. And so for Kent Johnson to overthink this, not really have the best preseason, and show off pretty poorly in some of these games, this Game 1 against the Philadelphia Flyers was a good chance for him to get familiar with what it is the Blue Jackets are trying to do, what Pascal Vincent is out here trying to enforce his hockey players to do. In fact, here are some other comments from Blue Jackets fans on social media. This is Twitter right here. Jeff Sabota tweeted out how Pascal Vincent confirmed that he was an extra. When Columbus drafted Johnson, the main two concerns were strength and pace. To see he is still working on that 2 years after his draft is not a surprise. He's only 20 years old. Stop freaking out. Kevin Knight went out there and said this: Kent Johnson sounds like he's getting scratched because he's not meeting expectations. I want him to succeed, but I also don't have a problem with Vincent setting the standard. Hold everyone to this. I'd rather that Kent Johnson learn this at Game 1 than at Game 53 of a lost season. And if Vincent is the communicator that we have read about, I'm sure this has all been discussed with Johnson. Accordingly, he is a smart player, and he will treat this as a learning experience. He will respond positively, Mike Zazan says. Furthermore, to really nail this point home, I wanted to go to Brian Hedger's Twitter, because what he did was he pretty much gave out the entire quote from Pascal Vincent in terms of pace of play, Benstrom earning a spot in the lineup, and how this affects the Johnson scratching as well. Kent is a great player. Like, I don't need to see more. I know what he can do. Like, how many points last year? 40 points? And he's a young player with tremendous skills? He's a great guy in the room. Guys respect Kent Johnson, and there's a reason why. Like we said earlier, we have to make a decision. I'm not sure he's going to play, just so you know, but we're looking to play with a lot of pace, and Kent Johnson will be a Blue Jacket for a long time, and he's going to be a great player. But one game is not going to define his game if he doesn't play that first game. It's not great, but there are going to be a few guys who are going to be in the position where they're not happy. That's when it comes down to the business decisions and the coach in me to make those decisions. It's not related to feelings, if you know what I mean. But Kent Johnson is like, I told you guys the other day, like, I'm so lucky. In general, I'm a lucky guy. But for my first chance to be a coach in the NHL, it's big for me. But to have the chance to be that guy with that group, it's even better. Our room is amazing. Amazing. So Kent Johnson is a part of that, and I'm excited to be his coach, and hopefully I'm going to be his coach for a long time, because he's going to have a great career. The next quote talks about Johnson's camp. You know what? He showed up in really good shape. Him adapting to what we're trying to do is a little bit slower, and it's not against him. His style of play, I don't want to change him whatsoever. I want him to improve like everybody else. I want Branson to improve, like all of them. So in Kent Johnson's case, I took a pretty long detour here. That's the pace. Like, just the pace in going and going. I know he's going to bring it, he can. This morning at practice, he was one of the best players, so it's good to see. It's not like I didn't like Kent Johnson's training camp. I think there's more pace to him. But his training was right. He's doing everything right. It's just what I said earlier. We have to make a decision, and only 20 guys can play. The following quote goes over how Emil Bemstrom was really good and ended up earning the spot. And this is kind of what people like about Pascal Vincent, is that the guy is really open and communicative about what it is that he feels about these situations. About Kent Johnson, he's giving his praises. He's saying there were improvements there. But with this system in place, Johnson needs a bit of adjusting. And even though he was a 20-year-old who had 40 points last year in the NHL, sometimes things just don't come to you right away when you're 20 years old playing in the NHL. So this first game against Philadelphia, totally okay for Johnson to be scratched. This does not impact the long-term potential of what Johnson is going to be as a player. But I did see so many people on social media, Twitter, Reddit especially, saying, wait a minute, why? Like, Pascal Vincent, what are you doing? This is weird. Columbus, you guys are tanking your prospects. You are not developing your guys. The sky is falling. Panic, alarming sounds going off everywhere. and it was kind of a big overreaction, I feel. Now, of course, the Blue Jackets fans are feeling a little bit different, but let me know your thoughts in the comment section either way about this Kent Johnson situation, how he went from last year a 40-point guy to this year being scratched in the first game, how this might be an attempt to avoid the Cole Sillinger situation from last year. What are your thoughts about Kent Johnson's future as a result of this move? I hope you enjoyed this video. Trolls 99, and bye.